and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Abbie Overturf is the owner and CEO of PRPSE Athletics, an online fitness and nutrition coaching company. After graduating college in May of 2020 with a bachelor's degree in marketing from the University of Utah, go Utes, she started working in the corporate world doing marketing and business analytics. While she had always been passionate about health and fitness, she never thought it would become her full-time career. Deep down, she knew she wanted to share how her life was changed through her fitness journey. After deciding to start coaching, Abbie got certified as an online fitness and nutrition coach with the intention of taking on a few clients. Those few clients turned into many clients, many lives changed, and growing by the day. Abbie is learning the art of navigating and scaling an online fitness and nutrition coaching business, changing women's lives daily. PRPSE Athletics wants to help women look and feel their best through fitness and nutrition and finding their purpose in the process. Abbie Overturf, what an honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Hi.
It's so cool to have you. As I was reading up on you and your work, on your website it says you're a subpar golfer. I consider myself to be a subpar golfer, but I think that mostly means I'm not very good. Subpar could also mean you are very good, like a scratch golfer. Are you that good at golf?
You know what? I've spent a couple of summers just golfing with my parents, a couple of golf lessons, but I would consider myself definitely subpar. But probably above the average of probably a lot of the girls or boys my age. So you know what? I'll take that as a win, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, you can take it either way in golf. I decided this last year that I was a subpar golfer, not very good at it, and it was consuming so much of my time. I ended up deciding that this last year would be the last round I would ever play of golf, and now I'm just going to enjoy the walking without the sucking at golf part.
Exactly. I would just go in with the intention, like, okay, like even if you suck, like you're still going to get some steps in. Maybe like you have a drink, like it's all good.
That's great. I love it when people don't take golf too seriously and they can just go and have a good time. But yeah, my skill set was really poor. I'm so curious. You have such an interesting story through fitness. I'm so curious to hear you share your story with the listener. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with health and fitness.
Yeah, definitely. So pretty much like my whole life, I've always been like pretty active. My parents actually met like on the ski hill being ski instructors. So I grew up skiing, grew up doing soccer. In high school, I got really into like cheerleading. So pretty much, I was a back spot. I'm 5'9", so I'm not like the best like tumbler. I don't know. My sister was. She's also 5'9", but who knows? Whatever. Usually gymnasts are really small. But anyway, I did cheer. I was super passionate about that. Did like, varsity, the whole thing. Also did like competitive cheer. And then after, graduating high school, I kind of like moved more away from that, decided not to take the college cheer route, but basically because I'm pretty tall for that and just wasn't really passionate about it anymore. So decided to graduate, obviously went to the University of Utah, kind of like had my own like fitness things that I thought I knew what I was doing. Like I'd go to the gym and like do some like treadmill walking or like go to the gym and do some Stairmaster, but I had like really no clue like what I was doing. I just kind of wanted to be a little bit healthier. And freshman year, everyone talks about like, the freshman 15 and all of that stuff. And I luckily didn't really like struggle with that too much just because I had a pretty good like foundation with like nutrition and stuff like that. But I did just kind of get away from fitness. And like, obviously with cheerleading being such like an intense sport, like just didn't really know like where my spot was with fitness. So, towards the end of my freshman year, I got kind of into, I don't know if you're familiar with but like the Kayla Itsinas, like BBG guides. Everyone was doing them and everyone like got these amazing results. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I should get into that. So
what is that?
Like,
I'm not familiar with that at all. What is that?
Yes. So basically they're these like guides that are like HIIT workouts. They're 28 minutes a piece. So like super easy and just like easy 28-minute workout that I was like, oh, if like I can get like, results like that in 28 minutes 3 times a week, like I'll definitely do that. But definitely very HIIT based. Like I probably did like 1,000 burpees in like the course of that program. Like seriously, I can tell you like in the past year, I've not done I don't even think I've done one burpee in the past year, which has been fantastic. But it was basically just super, super HIIT focused. So obviously like got some great like short-term results with that program and got, my foot into like fitness, got into the gym. And as that kind of like, I did that program and got some results. I was like, oh, this is pretty awesome. Like, I'm going to keep working out. And like, that's kind of like the summer I got into golf more. I like moved home with my parents and they had their own like nice gym membership. So I'm like, I might as well use this. So I decided to, like keep incorporating like weight training. And then like that kind of like stemmed into kind of like dabbling more into the weight section and like kind of moving a little bit more away from cardio and that stuff. But I still like didn't really have like a super great like grasp of nutrition. Like, yes, I understood like probably should have like protein, carb, and fat at each meal, which I'm thankful my parents like kind of like taught me that. But I didn't really understand like what my body needed. And I also didn't know like what that next step was to like get the results I truly wanted. Because obviously like with fitness and like working out is one side of it, but nutrition is honestly like so huge as well. So if you don't have both of those things kind of like streamlined, it's going to be pretty difficult to get results. So I was like, where do I kind of go with like nutrition now? Because I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of fitness, which I thought I did, but at this point, like now that I'm looking back, I'm like, oh girl, we were doing way too much cardio. But anyway, I kind of got just wanted to get more into nutrition and decided, I'm just gonna like cut my calories back, because like that's what you think of when you are trying to get results nutrition wise, especially like when you're like a woman growing up with all of these like, standards, and like you just have so much stuff online. Like you should do this diet, you should, cut carbs, you should do all this stuff, keto. Like there's just so much stuff out there that I was like, truly like what's going to work for me? So I tried like literally everything and like nothing was getting me results. Honestly, like it made me like just have like a poor relationship with food. And just like, I was realizing that like, I still wasn't getting the results I wanted. And I'm like, okay, I'm working out. I'm feeling like I'm like, doing all these diets and like it should be working, but it's just like truly not. And I finally got to a point where I was just so frustrated and I was like, this is heading in a really like unhealthy and not like the best direction, I guess you could say, for, like myself, like my health, anything like that. And I found this coach on Instagram actually. And her clients had great results and she did macros. And I was like, like I have like tried to track macros, but I just feel like I'm not really like, doing the right, macro split for my body and whatever. So I ended up contacting her and she basically told me like, yeah, you're eating like way too little for like what your body consume or like needs to have to like burn off really. I was eating around like without going into like numbers too much, like women should be like above 2,000 calories. And like I was eating like 1,400 because I thought that's like what you're supposed to. And it really like wasn't right for my body. So we basically did like some metabolism restoration and things like that. And basically like fell in love with that process through and through and really realized through that, like, oh my gosh, like I can eat so much food and like look so much better and feel so much better. And that was like really what got me like into fitness, was like how it changed my life in like the best way possible, like my energy levels, digestion, like all of the things like we don't really think about. Cause I think a lot of times we get really focused on like the physical aspect of like how we look maybe in the mirror, but we forget about like that relationship with food, like being able to be social and like also too, like working out in a way that like, you're building muscle and you feel empowered and like getting in the gym and like, you're not going to get bulky, if you're a woman, and like kind of breaking those stereotypes too as well. Which kind of led me obviously to like be super inspired to help other people on this journey as well. And that's kind of like where we kind of lead off with today. Like, I just wanted to really, also point people in this right direction and be like that, like guiding source light. And I always say, like, I just want to pay it forward to others. Like, cause I wish someone would have like, reached out to me to be like, hey, like, do you need help with this? Or like, what's kind of like, where are you at in your fitness journey? And like, what's like been your biggest challenge so far? And I really want to be like that source of like light and that source of like education for other people. So sorry, that was like a really long-winded answer, but it is just kind of I feel like everyone's story is long like that. So
yeah, totally. No, that's why we invited you on, is for you to tell your story. That's great. Such an interesting story. And I think anybody who experiences the results that you're describing really does feel like it's almost like an obligation where they want to go out and share this with the world. You faced some interesting challenges. First of all, graduating, during the pandemic, pretty crazy. I wonder if you could talk about that. And then also talking about, what you thought your career path was going to be was not necessarily related to fitness. Can you tell us what that was like?
Yeah, definitely. So it was so funny. So I was my senior year of college, 2020. had some interviews lined up. I was like ready to work basically probably in the marketing field. I graduated from the school of business with a degree in marketing. I was going to be an accountant, like accounting major. And I was like, oh, I don't know, that wasn't really my thing. So I decided to graduate with a degree in marketing. And basically, we're in Utah. I'm in Utah. And basically like there's so many like tech jobs and like it's like a very up and coming job market. So I was like, okay, perfect. Can just like, interview a few places, like get a job. Like I had some great like leadership and like experience from college that really like helped me in that aspect. But I was like, hey, I was getting a couple of interviews in the book. So basically I had an interview and it was scheduled, I think it was like March 14th. Anyway, like the day before, like or the day after the world shut down pretty much. Oh, and I got on my first interview and it was I think it was their first interview, like over Zoom or like when they like first transitioned to like work from home. So it was like just weird for everyone. It was this weird experience. Needless to say, I didn't get the job. It was okay. Obviously it worked out for the best, but I'm a person that really like likes to work and I like hate being like super like not busy. Obviously like to a certain extent, if I'm too busy, there's two different kind of swings of the pendulum, but I was like, I just need to like start working. So I asked my mom, my parents have a beer distributor business basically. And they were like, you know what, like you can like start working here for a couple of weeks, like, get you busy, like get you like some work experience. But I definitely thought that I was going to go into like tech sales or like tech something. So I was like, you know what, like might as well just try this out for a couple of weeks, like see how I like it. And I ended up like really liking it. Like, yeah, my bosses were pretty cool, like my mom, but, and obviously my other bosses. But I got some great experience there. Not only like, in sales and marketing and truly like learned so much stuff. I worked there for like a year kind of after graduation, but just because like the job market was just like so insane. There was so much, obviously, like I hate the word now, but like uncertainty and like no one knew what was going on, which in like kind of like looking back on it, like it was one of like the biggest like blessings for like my business and obviously like having like the flexibility, with a job like that, to be able to like build my business in the process as well.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Totally. And just for the listener, like if you're not in the Salt Lake area, to make that time like even more weird, that week in March where everything shut down, in Salt Lake City, we experienced a pretty strong earthquake on like March 16th. Like, yeah. Do you remember?
So I think that was the day of my interview. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I woke up to an earthquake. I was like, oh, the world is ending. This is it.
Oh, so weird to look back on. So absolutely bizarre. That's amazing. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that was a really interesting time that ended up, in hindsight being a blessing in disguise for people that were willing to be creative and see things in a different way. And it sounds like that's what you were able to do. When did you realize that your line of work that you thought you were going to get into was not what you were going to end up, sticking with?
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of like a weird experience because like I feel like in a way I still am doing a lot of things that I would have been doing in a job that I wanted to pursue, like sales, like marketing on social media or like marketing just in general or like analytics, like all of this stuff. Obviously I incorporate on a daily basis, literally like, every single day trying to optimize. So it's kind of funny that I still use that kind of like, experience that I needed to have for that. But I think like probably, I was working obviously at that other company for a while. And I just like started to just kind of get more obviously like that idea of like, I just really want to start something. Like, I just like, I've always kind of felt like I had a very like entrepreneurial mindset as well. So I kind of always like had that in the back of my head. Like I'm definitely capable of like starting something on my own. And like, I would love to do that someday, but I just don't know what it's going to be and whatever. And kind of like when coaching like kind of came up and I started this business and like obviously acquired some, clients, I was like, this is actually like, I have something here and like, I can do whatever, I kind of want to do. Like you're at the very beginning of your career. Like, yeah, like I know I'm like, a little bit younger than like some people, but like that's like, it's just a number. Like it's totally fine. Like just like kind of go for like what you want and your dreams. And a lot of kids my age too, like went that corporate route, which is like awesome. But I like kind of never really thought that was like going to be me. I thought it would just be kind of like a starting point. So.
Wow. So initially it was kind of a side hustle to do coaching, but eventually became, what you were doing full time?
Definitely. Yeah. So it was for sure a side hustle. Like when I first started and like the idea like came about, I was actually at dinner with my parents. And I was like, I have like a kind of a crazy idea. Like, what if I started like coaching some people? Because I'd had friends like approach me and be like, I would really love for you to train me. And once you get like recognition from like other people like that they're interested in something like that, you're like, huh, like I obviously I have something here, like something like people want, obviously. But definitely it was like kind of like a crazy experience, just like how fast it grew and how many people like, I had wanting to, have my help and like want to like join the community. And I had a fitness Instagram for like 2 years before I started my coaching, like a year and a half before I started coaching. So I had like, kind of a social presence, but like, like under 1,000 followers. Like it was more so just for me and like, cause I thought it was fun, not cause it was like my job basically. But obviously I got some people from that and then just like continued to grow from there.
Oh, that's great. Did you always know you wanted an online model? I think that the industry is changing so much and changed so much during the pandemic. It's part of the reason why we started our own business, is just that we noticed that people's behaviors were changing and they were less inclined to go to a big corporate gym and more inclined to work out at home or work out outside or do different things that they hadn't done before. Did you kind of recognize that that paradigm was going to stick and more people wanted to do online training versus in person?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, like I was always kind of like biased towards online just because like that's where my first coach was. And I realized like how many people you can reach that aren't just like in your geographical like area, I guess you could say. So I was always just kind of like, I want to be an online coach. And too, I had other people I followed on social media that I was like extremely inspired by, that they were coaching all these like, women and people from like across the country, and like how amazing that is to like make an impact from, coast to coast and now like worldwide too, which is fantastic. But I honestly never really considered like doing in person, like not because like obviously not because in person is bad. Like I think it's like fantastic. It's just something that I never like really like considered doing, just because like I, had done an online coach and it was super like successful for me. And I kind of wanted to build an online model. And too, I was like really interested in like the social media aspect and like building a business like in that way. So
yeah, that's amazing. I think it's such a cool lesson in using your individual gifts that all of us have. We all have a skill set that is very unique. And oftentimes, for me personally, I get stuck in kind of an imposter syndrome kind of mindset where I think like, what can I do or say that somebody isn't already doing or saying, and giving to people, how can I, present something that's more unique. And I found, especially through podcasting, that yes, we all have individual voices and all the experience that doesn't really seem like it's related to what we're currently doing. It all adds up and it all creates a unique thing that you can then use to share with people that will connect with people in a way that maybe other people won't have the ability to connect with. And I think your story just proves that, all the experience you did with marketing and business just helped you so much in the fitness world. I think it's so cool to take all those different talents and combine them into something that's very unique.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people get caught up with being like, there's so many trainers out there. There's so many like online fitness coaches, like why does it matter if like, I join, or like, who's going to want to like coach with me? Because there's so many other people, which I mean, I never really had that mindset, but I've seen other people have that mindset. But everyone's story is so different. Everyone's skill set is so different. Everyone vibes with different people. And like, it definitely is just like a very specific, unique thing. Like whenever I hop on a discovery call with a client, like I want to make sure it's a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, like I'll be very like upfront, like I want this to be like a good fit. And I want us to like really have that kind of like alignment with each other, because ultimately like that's going to be, the biggest thing. But I think a lot of people lose sight of that like everyone is unique. Everyone has their own story. Everyone is going to relate to something differently. But I think, it's fun to have kind of a different background than like, just fitness. Like I have like, obviously like my college background, and then like other things that just like that also just like unexpected. Like I didn't really like know I was going to end up here, which is like awesome. Now, like kind of looking back at it, I'm like, oh, this is like everything kind of like happened for a reason. So
yeah, that's amazing. I love that outlook, when we can look back and see that everything happened for a reason, and we can understand that that will continue happening in the future for us, and we don't need to be so anxious about the future. It's cool too to be able to have that mindset. I think you really need to have a creative mindset versus a competition mindset. I mean, this week alone, we're interviewing and promoting people, two different people that are trainers in our exact same industry that are in our same geographical area. And you would think like all of us are competing and, fighting for clients. And if somebody signs up with you, they don't sign up with us. And that's just not true. Like when you have a creative mindset, you understand that you've got something to offer and there's so many people out there that need help. We can all work together to be able to share this message of health and fitness in a way that's creating versus like competing with each other. It's so cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like I have to look at it in like a way that there is no shortage of clients. And I have a business coach too. And they're always saying, there's no shortage of clients. Like we're not here to compete with each other. And like, I work with so many other like really awesome, like fitness professionals that, yeah, we might have a similar target market, but we're still getting, similar people, but in a different way. It's kind of crazy, but there's no shortage. So everyone needs help.
Yeah, totally.
In some way.
Totally. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I want to go back and maybe talk about some of the fitness principles and nutrition principles that you've learned along the way and things you've changed your mind about. The first thing I really want to talk about is the reverse diet. Like you said, like recovering metabolism. I was fortunate enough for most of my career to work over a decade on a metabolic cart where we could actually measure people's metabolic rates and how many calories they were burning. And we would always see that if somebody did some form of like a crash diet, they limited their calories, and then they did similar to what you were describing, where they were just burning a ton of calories through doing, especially like cardio or high intensity work, we would typically see that their metabolic rate would be lower than normal, which means they were crashing their own metabolisms and sending messages to their body that said, you need to burn less calories. Can you talk about what your experience was like with that and what it was like, again, to go through that amazing process that you described of reverse dieting?
Yes, definitely. So reverse dieting is a huge part of my coaching and just like how especially like once I started like coaching clients, like how much I realized like how prevalent and important it is. And obviously I knew it was important before. And this is kind of like a reason why like it really stemmed me to get into like fitness and nutrition because a lot of people, have experienced a lot of these like crash diets. And that's something that I've experienced, firsthand. I remember like counting my calories to like 1,200 and like that's not what like my, total daily energy expenditures is a whole other topic, but that's definitely not even close where that is. So it's basically considered like a crash diet because I think, it's important to kind of like define like what a crash diet is. It's like, something that's not going to be sustainable, something that is not going to be like results will be, maintainable over time either. And honestly, it can be very damaging to not only your, metabolism, but also like your hormonal health and all of that stuff. So it's definitely something, if a diet seems like too good to be true, this is like what me and my assistant coach always say to our clients, that like if the diet seems too good to be true, like it probably is. So we definitely like don't want to like kind of question that and like see those like dieting like red flags. But definitely like with like going through a bunch of like crash diets and what I kind of a trend I've seen with women is that, they'll try a crash diet and then it won't work and then they'll gain weight back or, whatever they gain back more than they even like lost or whatever the case, worst case scenario. But a lot of people just like kind of are repetitively like going through these dieting phases and failing and realizing that doesn't work, so I'm just going to try the next thing, which kind of ends up obviously like you said kind of like not ruining, but really down regulating your metabolism. I always say like your metabolism isn't broken, it's just down regulated. So definitely that is something if a client comes to me and they have a very big dieting history, it is something to very like consider obviously and see like where their metabolism is at before even giving them a plan. We're really big over here on making sure that we have like the best plan for their body, for their health, for their metabolism, for their hormonal health as well. And a really big part of that is like their prior dieting history. So definitely like with what happened with like me is like that my calories were, a lot lower. So like my coach took into consideration, obviously dieting history, and we implemented a reverse diet. And basically in like short explanation, but a reverse diet is just like slowly increasing your calories over time. So you can get to a point where your metabolism is, fully functioning. Usually for women, like a good functioning, like metabolic metabolism is kind of around like 1,900 to like 2,500 calories, like kind of like give or take, obviously your like body's composition and things like that. Everyone is super different. But definitely want to get to a point where we are maintaining our weight at a lot of higher calories. And it might seem this like fictional thing. And like when I tell women that they could be eating it over 2,000 calories, they're like, Abbie, no, that's not true. Like I'll never get to that point. But until you live it, and I remember just getting to that point of like eating above 2,000 calories and being like, literally, what is this magic? And it's not really magic at all. It's just, up regulating your metabolism and really restoring it and getting it to a place that it should be. And honestly, like that's where our body thrives. Our body thrives at like a maintenance zone. It thrives when it's, at that high amount of calories. And definitely just like with all these like kind of dangerous diets and all this stuff on, TikTok and social media that can be like super negative, especially when women are experiencing this like from a young age. It can definitely like mess up with your metabolism, but it's not something that's, broken forever. It can definitely like be restored. And that's something we really help our clients with a lot. A lot of clients come to us and they think, oh, like I'm, eating, a lot of calories, but it's like in reality, it's like your metabolism has just like down regulated to that amount, and we got to restore it a little bit before we even think about like entering into like a dieting phase, first and foremost. So did that kind of explain your question?
No, totally. That was a great,
Okay.
that was a great explanation. You mentioned
there's a little ton to it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I wanted to just reiterate is you mentioned when you are doing a reverse diet, you want to be very gradual in adding back the calories. You don't want to do it all at once. What kind of rate do you think that most people get the best results when they're starting to add more calories back to the diet to kind of recover that metabolic rate?
Yeah. So typically, basically, we'll like look at a client, and everyone, obviously it's different. I feel like all fitness and nutrition answers are always, it depends. But I think like usually every like, couple of weeks adding in, 80 to 150 calories is probably like kind of an amount that like we kind of shoot for. But there's a couple of things like to consider with this, like how is your consistency been? What is your biofeedback looking like? How are you feeling? Are you feeling a little bit hungrier? Because like sometimes, your body is like just wants the food so bad, and like all of a sudden your metabolism just like starts like, firing up, and it's like, oh, I'm hungry again. Or like a lot of times too, like we lose kind of like our hunger hormones. There's basically like two hunger hormones called ghrelin and leptin. And when you do like crash diet for a long time, like those things can get like really kind of out of whack. So like kind of learning to restore those and like all this stuff kind of comes back. But I think like results wise, like typically we try to do like every couple of weeks, but everyone is super different. Some people can move at a faster rate. Some people are a little bit slower, but that's like the advantage of having a coach to work with on something like this is like, they can look at you and be like, okay, like let's make an increase. But if you're doing it on your own, I think, you totally could. It's just something like it is kind of scary, especially for women to be like, okay, like let's eat more food. Just like from my experience. And like, I think like just thinking back to like my first reverse diet, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a little bit scary. But in the end, you got to kind of like think of like the big picture and like what that long-term vision is rather than like kind of what the short term is. But I mean, the purpose of a reverse diet too, like isn't to like lose weight. It's to restore your metabolism. And obviously there's like a few different outcomes from a reverse diet. Like a lot of people experience really fantastic though, like body recomposition. So basically like losing a little bit of body fat and gaining muscle. So it's a really awesome though phase, like for, anyone that has like a downregulated metabolism, regardless of whether it was intentional or non-intentional. So
yeah, no, that's a really good point. You mentioned something that I know you're very good at with your coaching, which is individualization and understanding that all of us are very different. I mean, we find ourselves over here at Boundless Body, more kind of in the low carbohydrate space. It's just kind of what we've gravitated to, and it's what we specialize in. So that's what we do. And at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that doesn't work for everybody. And it's so interesting about nutrition, but also equally like frustrating is that, we want to tell the same thing to all these different people, and it just doesn't work. Nutrition is so individualized, and even in the same person, what is working today might not work in the future. And so being nimble and being able to make different recommendations and being really individualistic, I think is really smart. You mentioned a few metrics that you kind of work with people on to determine how things are going. You mentioned feeling really good. Do you think that's one of the more important things to look at, and when you're considering whether something is working or not, is just simply how the person is feeling?
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, when kind of assessing progress, we look at a bunch of different things. We have a really in-depth like check-in process where basically they will also fill out, like biofeedback measures, which kind of like also in turn kind of shows like how they are feeling in a sense. Cause like, it's like, okay, how are you feeling like kind of based on like from last week? But if we have like that, like solid data on like a scale of 1 to 5, how's your sleep? How's your hunger? How's your energy? How's your stress levels? All of that stuff, we can get like a really good picture on how they're truly feeling. But definitely like, I mean, if they're like really like enjoying the plan, like to be honest, like a plan that someone's going to stick to is going to be a plan that they like to do. And it's something that they obviously like are getting results from, whether it is physical or it's like mental results as well. And I mean, definitely everything is so custom and very individualized to the person. Like I can tell you right now, like every single one of my clients has a slightly different kind of approach because everyone's, personality type is different. Everyone responds to things differently. Their body does. And that's just part of like the fun. And that's the part of like, having a bunch of clients and really like learning that process and being like resourceful, with kind of like encountering all these different approaches. But everyone is so different and it's always like a fun, thing to figure out. So
yeah, totally. I've just everybody's an individual puzzle to kind of figure out. I really love that approach. You coach a lot with macros, and I think people have a lot of misconceptions. And I think it starts with what macros even are. Can you explain to people what we are talking about when we talk about macros, what they are, and how you use that to help coach people with their nutrition?
Yeah, definitely. So we personally like teach the macro approach. We also have other nutrition methods because as I said before, like everyone is so different. Some people, don't want to, track macros, but I always try to stress like what the meaning is of macros and like why we kind of do it and like the why on all of the protocols, not just, nutrition. But basically macros are built out of protein, carbs, and fats, and they make up your total like daily calories. And it is kind of like a flexible way to diet because basically what we kind of teach over here is like the 80-20 approach. So like 80% of your food should be whole foods, 20% can be like, enjoying yourself, whether that's like, a glass of wine, a piece of chocolate, like whatever that kind of is. But I want to like establish that balance for our clients. And so basically if you have that 80-20 approach and you kind of like hit your macros in a sense, which is basically, hitting your protein goal, hitting your fat goal, hitting your carb goal. And it's something that is very custom and individualized based on the person and all of their stats. But basically that's like kind of like what we coach to. One big thing that people get really nervous about macros, like it seems like really scary. Even me just explaining it right now, I'm like to like the average person that has like never heard about macros, it seems like, oh my gosh, like this seems like a lot of information. And one great thing about like, our program, and if you like work with like, a coach or something like that, is like a good coach should like really take you through the process and really teach you like, from like ground zero, like how, like what a macro is, really get them like submersed in it. Because the amazing thing about macros is really learning how to build your plate. And the purpose of macros isn't to do it forever. It's to just really gain a solid knowledge on how to eat eat for your goals, but also eat for a lifestyle that you enjoy. Having that balance, having, being able to go out with friends and go out on trips. I always say like, if you can't take your, quote unquote diet on a vacation, or you feel like you couldn't do this forever, it's probably something you shouldn't be doing. So that is like an approach we really take, but we also like coach our clients on like how to, you don't have to like bring your food scale out forever. Like I don't expect you, be a grandma, like at the end of your life, like trying to, weigh out your food. Like that is like not really like the purpose of it. It's to really just like learn about food and then eventually like kind of transition more into like a more intuitive approach, like based on the skills you've learned in your tool belt.
That is such a great point. I love that. I love that you make it seem like it's not something you're going to do forever. I think people get locked into thinking that they have to eat this exact diet and they do have to weigh their food. They do have to track everything for the rest of their life. And no, it's you're right. It's like building a skill that, once you learn that skill, it's yours for the rest of your life. And speaking on skills, I have to say one of the biggest challenges that I face when I'm doing nutrition coaching with people is skills in the kitchen. It seems like more and more, this is becoming such a limiting factor. It's one thing to tell somebody, how to eat, but it's a whole different thing to tell somebody how to eat when they don't know how to use a chef's knife. They don't, cook their own food. They don't know how to prepare their food. They don't have any of those skills in the kitchen. Is that something you come across quite a bit, like where people have limiting factors in the kitchen, and how do you work with people that way?
Yes, for sure. So, I mean, when I first started out, that was a bottleneck in my process, but I really came up with some like good recipes, like for myself. And obviously like, this is the skill, just like anything, like, when you were first learning math in school, it's like kind of a similar thing. You just got to keep working at it. And all of a sudden, like you feel a lot more confident, but we definitely have clients ranging from, not wanting to literally spend like more than 2 minutes in the kitchen, to clients that are like actually chefs, and they like share their recipes in our client group text. Like we love, both ends of the spectrum, and they help us all out. But definitely that is something we encounter, and something we also like really stress is like, it is totally fine to have very simple meals, and we want you to enjoy your meals. Like one of the great things about, like counting macros and having that flexibility is like, you can have the food that you truly like. And I think a lot of people like get really scared about cooking, and they're like, well, I can't prepare this, meal plan, or I can't prepare this meal. And that becomes like almost an excuse for them not to, continue on their nutrition goal, when it shouldn't be an excuse really at all. Because, to be honest, like when you kind of break it down, like everything with food can be super simple. So we really encourage our clients, like if it's just, like you can definitely pull out some deli turkey and put it onto a rice cake with some, spinach. Like it's not like it's like has to be this like crazy, like, chef experience, but definitely we give our clients to like recommendations on like, what kind of sources of protein to put together, a bunch of like different easy meal sources. And we have an entire like resource library of like recipes and stuff that is like, ranging from, on the easier side to like, not as easy. But like the biggest thing is like just having food you enjoy, because if it's not gonna be something you don't like you're not going to like stick to it. So it's fine if you like, like the quote unquote bro meal. And I like those too, because they're easy to make, but we also want to make sure we're like teaching you how to enjoy your food, and also know that like, nothing's off limits, but also we want to make sure that, it's easy for you to cook, because if it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be something you can maintain long-term. So.
Yeah, totally agree. We just hosted Dr. Bill Schindler on our show for the second time, and he wrote the book, Eat Like a Human. And he was talking about how like you want to take one step kind of closer to the food, get a little closer to the food. If you're always eating out, try preparing a simple meal at home. If you can do that, then try to, get the individual ingredients that are just one ingredient foods and make a meal from scratch, and just whatever it is, get a little closer. And, he really tried to not come across like this is, it's not supposed to be a pain in the ass. This might take a little bit more time and energy, but that's because this is really important. You really need to be mindful about your food, because otherwise you're going to end up with any kind of chronic disease, or you're going to be overweight. You're not going to be happy. It does require a bit of attention, and you're right. You can make it very simple, but it's worthwhile when you start feeling better and start burning fat. It's so much better.
Definitely. And too, like I have my clients like look at things that they like really enjoy eating out, and then trying to make it, at home, but like more, macro friendly, with maybe some more fiber and like things like that. That's a huge tip that like once I started incorporating, if I was really craving like a burger or something like that, like it's totally fine to like go out and get that from time to time, but not, every day. So like I would maybe create a more, macro friendly burger with like a lower fat, like, good beef, and then maybe like make it lettuce wrapped, or like have it on a salad, or like something like that, to just like kind of curb that craving, not fight it, but like just come up with something that's a little more creative and a little bit like, a little bit better for your goals. So
yeah, that's great. Let's talk a little bit about fitness. I'm curious to know like what things you thought originally were true about health and fitness, especially on the fitness and exercise side, that your thinking has evolved with over time.
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely used to be a very big like cardio bunny, and I thought that was the only way to reach my goals. As I kind of said in my fitness journey before, I was doing, HIIT workouts, treadmill time, Zumba, which all that stuff is awesome, and I still really enjoy it. And Zumba is a very fun workout. I have to say that. I did a summer at home with my mom, and we went like every day. But it's not something that, I guess, if you're thinking about like physique goals, like if your physique goal is to, be more muscularly toned, because ultimately women say toned, but what that kind of like pairs down to is like building a little bit of shape and building a little bit of muscle. And if that's your goal, strength training is going to be like probably like the best option, like resistance training wise, and whether that is, picking up dumbbells and like really following like a set program, or even just, like doing Pilates and having some like resistance training, that is going to be like the best way to build muscle. And one thing that was like just like such a game changer to my journey was like when I stopped focusing on like the calorie burn and more so focused on like how my workouts are doing and thinking of like the long-term kind of approach with strength training. One thing a lot of people kind of get caught up with strength training is that they're like, okay, well, I didn't burn, as many calories as I do in, Orange Theory or like whatever, like a cardio class. I'm like, okay, well, let's think about like the long-term, vision. With strength training, we put on muscle, which actually helps you to burn more calories at rest. So like long-term investment wise, putting in more time to strength training and building muscle is going to be more advantageous. And also you're going to get that toned look you want. Because if we're just cutting our doing a ton of cardio, eating low food, we basically just become a smaller version of ourselves. We don't really have that like shape that we really want. So that is just kind of like a really big thing that kind of changed for me, is like incorporating strength training and really getting serious about it, going through, a building phase, getting uncomfortable, eating food, and really realizing like, okay, like I'm a woman and I'm like not going to get like bulky per se, unless I'm like, going like super extreme to like, other things that we don't need to talk about. But definitely for like the average woman, and like, they don't really need to like fear that. And that's definitely something I was scared of. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm literally going to look like a man, when like, that's like not the case. And I feel like it's been debunked by a lot of people, but it's still something that is scary and that women like, have that misconception with. But overall, muscle is great, not only for how you look, but also like your long-term like health and longevity. So
we talk about this with our clients all the time, and it's putting the question back on the client and saying like, okay, would you rather burn 500 calories being a hot, sweaty mess on the treadmill and have to do that like every single day? Or would you rather burn 500 calories a day just being you and not changing anything, just by increasing your metabolic rate? And I think most people, when they hear that, would totally understand that, yeah, I would rather do the latter. I would rather just burn more calories naturally on my own because I'm eating the right amount and doing the proper exercise.
Mm-hmm. So much better. And I mean, you're not like running yourself into the ground either. Like with cardio, like it comes to a point where your body adapts, and it's like, okay, like, are you going to, increase cardio more? You're going to lower your food? Like, where do you kind of go? Like, you kind of run yourself into the ground. With strength training, it's fun because your body's always trying to adapt to the strength training too, but it's building muscle in the process. And, sitting on the couch and burning calories just because of your, resting, metabolic rate is awesome.
That's great. Yeah. Something you just alluded to is a great segue to my next question, which is all about periodization. Can you tell the listener what periodization is, what it means, and why it's important to incorporate into a strength training program?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of like for like the basic, like average client, what we kind of like want to look at when we're doing that with like programming and periodization and all of that stuff is, a lot of people come to us and they're just been kind of like bopping around program to program. And they'll be like, oh, just like kind of maybe do like an arm day here or there, or like maybe they're just like doing cardio as a whole. And one thing we really want to optimize is like their training, and really express to them like how important it is to really follow a good training program like to a T. Because that is what is going to get, the best results for them, along with their nutrition as well. So definitely one thing we do is like, we look at a client's, experience level, what equipment they have, all of that stuff. We really want to take that all into account when kind of like programming for them, because obviously if someone is like more beginner, we're not going to, start them out doing something really, extreme, especially, even if they're advanced, we don't really do like extreme stuff, but, things that are like maybe more scary to a beginner. So like, the barbells, and especially since we're online, we really want to express to our clients, like, send us form videos. Like, we really want to see how your like form is. We also have like an app that has like videos on it. Anyway, so side note, and that's how we kind of like do that online perspective with that. But like when incorporating, a good training program, we try to do like different, rep ranges. And I think a lot of people get caught up with like, okay, I need to just be in like, the 8 to 12 rep range, or I need to be super high reps, because super high reps, builds lean muscle, which is like totally like not true. I think there's like a lot of misconceptions with that, but I think like just optimizing, going back and forth from, low rep range to high rep range, and really testing out, strength ranges and all of that stuff, and just like really challenging our clients in that way, as well as just like having them stick to a program for, 4 to 6 weeks. That's like kind of like what our, how we kind of program our clients, but obviously everyone is different. I mean, I've had times where I stick to a program for, like 8 to 12 weeks, which I don't know. can be seen as like a positive or negative, but some people get bored with their program as well, and are just kind of like want to switch it up. But we definitely encourage our clients, like we shouldn't be bopping around, every single week. Like we're going to stick to this program. We're going to really trust the process, take those rest periods and really make sure that we are utilizing the programming in the way, like we rotate in a certain way to get you results you want, and to just like really trust the process. And what we've found is that like clients really fall in love with weight training because they realize the importance and value of progressive overload, and like, oh my gosh, like Coach Abbie, like I'm getting stronger. Like I feel so much better in the gym. I just picked up, the 20-pound dumbbells. When I first started, I was picking up the 5s. Like that's fantastic. And that's even like another like form of progress that we like sometimes like don't even really like think about, is like, oh, like I'm getting stronger. Like that's so like cool. Especially like for women when they have that like realization. That's really fantastic. So
yeah, totally. That's great. No, I think when somebody is thinking about what they're going to do for an exercise program, it's really about writing the line between, okay, these are the principles. I need to do these same certain things, with my workouts, and I want to stick with those generalized principles. But at the same time, I don't want to get bored doing the same thing, and I don't want to, get my body accustomed to doing the same thing. It sounds like your approach is really great for helping people, stay engaged and stay interested in their programs, and also keeps their body guessing about what's coming next.
Yeah, definitely. And we're super big about, obviously incorporating like compound lifts and like getting them, progressively overloading on their squats and their, their deadlifts, and really like perfecting those like, basic movements that, not only do we need, for fitness sake, but like even just like when we get older, like sitting down and like, it's all going to be like really important things, just like for range of motion and like overall strength. So really like also teaching them and like educating them on like why they're doing these things, rather than just like giving them a program and being like, okay, here you go, stick to it. So they really understand like that, like why behind it.
Totally. No, I love that. For somebody, a lot of people listening have probably tried some form of diet or workout program, but maybe there's also listeners who are kind of new to this and don't even know maybe like where to start, or maybe they're getting really intimidated because you're right, there is so much, false information and myths online, and it's easy to get sucked into weird rabbit holes and get really confused and become, not willing to do anything because you don't know exactly what to do. What would you give as far as advice to somebody who is just starting out in their health and fitness journey?
Definitely. So I think like one big thing to like kind of think about is like, rather than like taking away a bunch of stuff, like thinking about like what you can add in, as well as not like trying to go from like 0 to 100. I think a lot of people get really caught up with like, okay, I need to cut out sugar, flour, all this stuff. I have to add in like thousands of minutes of cardio. It's like, okay, no, like that's maybe not like the right approach. How about we just focus on like adding in a walk, and then adding in a gallon of water like the week after, and then maybe the week after, making sure we get like 8 hours of sleep. Like it can start with like habit stacking, and that's like kind of what we're really big on over here, is like building those like basic habits and really getting you streamlined with like your overall like internal like basic things. Because I think a lot of people get really caught up in like the extreme diet, or like trying to have like the perfect workout plan, when it's like, okay, well, how is your, water? Are you getting, 30 grams of fiber? Are you, doing whatever it might be? That's like a very basic thing that if we don't have those mastered, like we don't need to focus on like all of these like crazy things. So I think just like really focusing on like those things you can add in, like, adding in water, adding in a walk, adding in some more veggies. Like that's a great way to start out. And you'd be surprised on like how many people we can give protocols to that's literally just like a water, step, and sleep protocol, and they immediately, feel better after a week. And it's like, that's just like, a basic thing that our body, needs. But if we don't focus on it, it's something that's like really detrimental to progress. And that's going to be detrimental throughout, whether we, have a perfect diet or a perfect, workout plan. So
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like it's really about getting a small win for somebody that will then make them more likely to get another small win and another small win. And you're starting this kind of positive cascade. And you're right, the habit stacking is so critical to be able to build in to somebody's life, because it then can become something that's really automatic and really beneficial for somebody when they're doing it every single day, even if it's just something really small. I'm curious to know, just off the top of your head, if you can think of one or two of your favorite like success stories that can be big or small or anything that just comes to mind. What are some of your favorite success stories?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I've had a couple clients now that have been with me, almost like a year now, which is crazy to kind of like think back on. But like I've had some clients come to me with just like very like poor relationship with food, had no clue how to strength train. Maybe like, looked good, like looked like a, normal person. Like they didn't have, like a ton of weight to lose, like it wasn't like affecting their health too much, but they just wanted to feel better. And a couple of these people, have come to me and I've been like, okay, well, like let's put you on a reverse diet. And like, this one girl I'm kind of like thinking of right now, like she's awesome. And she really just was like, okay, Coach Abbie, like I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to, have you increase my calories to like 2,200 plus, like add in strength training, like just really like, soaked it in and really like took the process just like in control of herself, and really was incredible with like restoring her relationship with food. And like I think a lot of people think about like, oh, I just want to see that like end result, which like is awesome, but also just like kind of like knowing that like road and journey ahead is like kind of what's going to like really enforce all those like habits kind of like going throughout. And she is like just kind of completely just like blown me out of the water, just like, oh my gosh, like how much she has grown as a person, and not only, as like a, client, but also just like in her personal life as well, like how it can transform your mental health and your physical health and your relationship with food and going out to eat with your boyfriend, and all of that stuff is like, things that we try to, incorporate over here. And I mean, also to like on the other spectrum, like people that like need to like lose weight and then do it in a sustainable way, like people that have, bounced around from like program to program. I have like one client kind of in mind, but she, had bounced around to like every single program in the books. And she was like, I'm just sick of this. Like, what? I'm not getting results. So she joined with me. She was like a little bit skeptical. I think after you kind of been burned by a few things, you get a little bit skeptical. And she's really found like a very sustainable weight loss plan. And we're like 20 pounds down, which is awesome. But it just does take that right, person, and also like something that's going to be sustainable, something that you got to see that big picture with and come up with like sustainable habits. So.
Totally. I think it's so important what you mentioned, to appreciate the journey. I think most people do wish we had like a magic wand that we could just wave and get them the results that they wanted. But I think a lot of people would realize they wouldn't be any happier if we could do that for them, because there's no value there. They didn't do any of the work, and the value really comes on being consistent and doing the workouts and doing them, with that kind of consistency that, yeah, maybe you didn't want to wake up early on a Tuesday, but that's what builds your character. And that's what, makes the journey so much more important. And that journey just continues on for the rest of life. And that's where all the value is. So I'm so glad you hit on that. That's great. Tell us where you think online and virtual coaching will be in the future. Do you think this is something that's going to grow, or do you think this is something that as the world comes back online after the pandemic, people are going to want to be more in person?
Yeah, so definitely, I think it's a very like great growth market, just from kind of where like technology is heading as a whole. It's like this metaverse and all this stuff kind of going on. I think that the online kind of space is just going to continue to grow. I think though that like still there's going to be people that just really benefit from that like in-person aspect, which is like awesome too. And everyone's so different. But definitely with like the online, as it just continues to get better, and like, there's more platforms and there's so much more to learn. And, it's so accessible now. Like, if you think about it, like back in the day, you'd have to like search, just basically in your area for like that best trainer. And it's like, well, what if like, that person's not there? So now that you can access like pretty like much like anyone in the world, it's there's both positives and negatives to that. Finding like, good coaches and good people. But I think definitely it is a very big like growth market, and people, they want that flexibility. They want to be able to, go on their phone and have, an app that basically guides them through everything. Like it's like an easy thing for them to do as well. But I think, obviously there's still benefits to like being in person. But, online space, I think will just continue to grow as like, online as a whole continues to grow.
Yeah. So much room to grow either way. That's amazing. What does it look like exactly if somebody wanted to work with you? How does that process work? And how does your online coaching program help your clients like practically? Like what does it look like exactly?
Yeah, definitely. So basically like my program kind of looks like we do like the application process. We want to make sure it's like a good fit for you. So what if you want to like, apply, I have like a link both on my website, my Instagram bio, all of that stuff. And basically you just like submit an application. And then from there, we'll hop on a Zoom call and just like make sure it's a good fit, just like kind of, chat and go over everything. It's pretty easy process, but we just want to make sure obviously like we're both going to have a good fit with this and that I can, be obviously like the solution to your problem. But kind of like just like looking at it from like a coaching perspective, once we get the client onboarded, we have a very great like questionnaire onboarding system. We have an app that basically, tracks your, accountability aspects, all of like your nutrition stuff kind of like tracks that app. We have basically like a client group chat. One thing that we really wanted to like really focus on with this like program is making sure that we still had a really great like community and experience, because obviously it is online and I know online can sometimes like feel a little bit lonely. So we have monthly community Zoom calls. We're actually having on one this week on reverse dieting, which is exciting. We have the client group chat, obviously, all of like your workouts and stuff are on the app. So we're definitely getting a lot of touch points to you and your coach. Your coach also has 24/6 access. So you can definitely like, text your coach, 24/6 for anything you kind of need in the process. You want to make sure this is like a very, program where you can just like get that, resources you need, and also just like build that relationship with them as well throughout like the process. But yeah, we'd have completely custom, programming and nutrition protocols, everything, every single program looks different. And we definitely like personalize it and, do weekly check-ins to make sure that you're making progress. If we need to make any adjustments, things like that. But obviously I'm biased, but it's been a great program, really successful for a lot of people. And I'm excited to just like continue growing it. So
that's fantastic. And speaking of growth, you can't really go through this process of coaching other people without experience a lot of growth yourself. Curious to know, how have you become a better coach since you started this business?
Yeah, definitely. So I think like once I started the business, I obviously knew there was going to be like a little bit of like a learning curve, not only with like the business side, but like obviously like coaching as well. And definitely just like within like the past year of like coaching and really getting in the trenches with everything, I've learned so much, and also done like a ton of like research on my own, obviously with like my certification too. But I mean, one thing I like didn't really realize is like how different every single person is and how beautiful that is as well. And kind of like, as you, get more people, you understand like kind of like what needs to be personalized for every single person, and what needs to be added to the program to optimize that and to really like fit everyone's needs. Cause it's hard to be able to fit, every single person's needs. But something that we did, what I try to do, and like one of our values is just like innovation. So just like always trying to innovate to like, fit that person and fit that mold, and try to give like everyone kind of like, the experience they desire and want. And I mean, too, with like the business side, just like trying to grow that as well as like has been challenging, but I have, a great support system, great mentors. I, really seek counsel and, try to have like that teamwork aspect as well, just because, some things you're just not as good at, and you can definitely, ask questions and like be inquisitive. And I think that's really important as well. So.
Well, Abbie, I just think I've got some constructive criticism for you, that you were just not very excited. You need to be a little bit more excited or passionate or something. You're not excited at all whatsoever. You have no enthusiasm.
No. Not at all.
This is great. I feel like you're like coming through my headphones and talking right at me. I absolutely love all the passion and excitement you have.
Yeah.
It's so amazing when you really find somebody who they are following their true calling. There's something that is so, what's the word? It's just so empowering, and it gives people permission for them to do the same, for them to follow their heart and to follow their dreams and do what they are truly called on this earth to do. And it's so apparently obvious. People like my wife, Bethany, you can tell when she is working with somebody one-on-one, she is in the zone and she's following her life passion. I can tell that's exactly the same for you. I'm so glad you had the courage to step out of what, you were trained to do technically in college and follow your heart and follow your passion. And you can just tell like you are so full of enthusiasm and passion, which we absolutely love. What is one simple thing that you would like to leave with the listener as a tip from this conversation that they could apply in their lives and use for their benefit?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this is like kind of like twofold. So I'll just kind of like give the 2 bullet points. But the first thing is like, follow your passion. Like, don't be scared to like, break out of that comfort zone. I think that's one thing I've really learned over the past year is like, there is a comfort zone, and growth comes from outside of that. So definitely like if you have like a little inkling or you want to do something, like go for it. And also too, like, I guess this kind of goes like hand in hand with that, but like, it's never too late to work on your health. Like your health is wealth, basically. I know people say that's a cheesy saying, but it is so true. Like this is your body, this is for the rest of your life. And it's never too late to really focus on that and to really like create that lifestyle and, you know, something you want, and it only goes up from here. So
that is amazing. I love both of those pieces of advice. I think anybody could benefit from that. Abbie Overturf, where do you want people to go to find you and connect with you and your work?
Yes, definitely. So I think probably the best place to go is my Instagram. So it's at fit.abbie, ABBIE. On there is like all of like the Purpose Athletics information, as well as like our Purpose Athletics team page. You can visit there as well. How you spell purpose is PRPSE, basically like take out the vowels except for the E, but kind of just like a fun little business name. And then if you want to go to our website, that is just Purpose Athletics or purposeathletics.com. So yes, all the information is on there, the application link, all of that stuff. Would love to connect if you're interested.
Beautiful. We will link to all of that in the show notes. Abbie Overturf, what a wonderful conversation this was. Again, we're so grateful for you and for your work. How well you put together this information and share it on your Instagram is very, very well done. You can definitely tell you're taking your marketing background and using it to really reach a lot of people and help a lot of people in their lives. So thank you so very much for all of that, for all of your work. And thank you for coming on our show today. We really appreciate it.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was such an honor. Now you can go out and find some passion or excitement about something.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.